nowadays in our market, you will see some marble from Egypt, coffee from Cote d'Ivoire, and Uganda, and auto parts from South Africa, and the electronic products from Tunisia, tobacco from Zimbabwe. So many things made in Africa now available in China. So we're trying to address this trade imbalance. And now Africa, I think the challenge will be there for a long time, even though we have made effort, because this advantage of rich resources in Africa. So resources will remain the leading factor for the foreseeable future. So Africa now is the second largest crude oil resources to China. The first one is Middle East. So around 50% of our oil import is from Middle East. So Africa comes as the second. So anyway, investment. I just highlight those figures. Investment comes later comparing with the trade, but it developed very fast, especially in the recent 10 years. Now it grew from like $50 million in the year 2001 now to nearly $1 billion annually. So actually, I think this figure, I came across those kind of questioning many times from one of my American colleagues. Whenever he meet me, he will raise this question: how much investment? How much investment? Because he can get different number, different data from different resources. So even I raise this question to our guys in the Ministry of Commerce, they cannot give me a very accurate number. Why is that? Because the investment, sometimes you will read the figure mentioned 40 billion, 40 billion. Sometimes our white paper saying it's only 15 billion US dollar. So why is such a huge gap? Because some, according to the information I collected, some investment is rather some islands in the Pacific, and then Ministry of Commerce hasn't accounted them in. And some are, the buying those bank stake, maybe like Chinese, the biggest bank, they have already bought the 25% share of the Standard Bank in South Africa. Sometimes those financial acquisition, I don't think they have been counted in. So there's a different way of accounting. Anyway, the speed is fast. So labor contract also now Africa is becoming the second largest market for China in this regard. So nowadays we have 1 million to 2 million. The number also is not so accurate within that range of the number. So Chinese in Africa. So nowadays when you travel to Africa, you will very easy to come across a Chinese face on the street. So 10 years ago, it's very hard to find them. I used to spend my leisure time around the beach of Mombasa. And then some African guy approached to me saying, "Are you a Japanese?" I said, "No." "Why you guess I'm Japanese?" Because he answered, he said, "Oh, because you're around the beach. This is for leisure. So normally if people, Asian face, walking around the beach should be Japanese or Korean. But if I show up in the working construction site, they will not take him a second to think over, I'm a Chinese." So that's the difference. So Chinese people are working in the Africa, and Japanese guys, other people, maybe they are now do their leisure time, so in Africa. But that situation also changed. My last visit to Masai Mara in Kenya, and then see a big group, travel group from Shanghai. So those Chinese tourists now also flooding to Africa. So that's another. I don't think those tourist number has been counted to this 1 million. So those 1 million often refers to those laborers. So anyhow, this also relates with one of the criticism to China, Chinese labor issue in Africa, and I think that's another Brazilian soft power when you handling your African policy, because you don't have this kind of way, bring the Brazilian workforce to Africa. Maybe that's because they don't want to go, right? But I think maybe in the next 10 years also, those Chinese labor issues maybe will not exist as often as today, because now the wages has been increased in China. So nowadays, with the wages increasement, those Chinese workers, maybe also, they will feel very reluctant to go to Africa to take that job. So I don't think this will be a permanent phenomenon. But for Africa, they have lots of homework to do, because people now are saying, according to the World Bank figure, saying it will be 80 million jobs will be transferred from China all the way to Africa. So theoretically speaking, there will be 80 million jobs because of this, the upstream of Chinese product. But are Africans ready? Can embrace those 80 million jobs? So the education base is also ready. They have the technician are ready. So those high technical labor forces, they are there or not. So if they are not there, and then probably we'll see Vietnamese or Sri Lanka or Bangladesh, those workers to replace Chinese workers and then still flooded into Africa. So I don't think it's just the case. So refers to a Chinese way of doing in Africa. That's the byproduct of this globalization, economic globalization. Anyhow, I should quickly move to the FOCAC and its impact. So FOCAC, as I said, is a forum. I don't think now, I think this is a PINET issue, because now maybe we will soon have the China Latin America Cooperation Forum, maybe, and then we will have China and the ASEAN countries cooperation forum. So at the beginning, when in the year 2000, when we established this one, everybody, maybe some are quite suspicious about how this mechanism will go. So nobody can guarantee its success. But eventually now, more than 10 years has been passed, it proved itself. It's a very successful mechanism. So why we did that? Because when we're looking around, we have seen lots of similar mechanism has been built between United States, Africa, and even Japan, our neighbor country Japan, like Tokyo, Africa conferences, and then also United States, Britain, France, they have their English-speaking country and Francophone Africa Summit. So, and also this idea has been raised constantly by African friends. So it was not an initiative made by China side. It has been raised by African colleagues. So after years of consideration, and eventually China take that idea and then embrace that idea, so make it happen. So anyway, quickly go this. Every 3 years, we will have one meeting. So here, mechanism design, that's very important. So that's once every 3 years. Now we even are talking, shall we change it into once in 5 years? Because 3 years pass so quickly. Nowadays, time flies very soon. Sometimes those action plan, all those measures has been inked on paper, and then eventually find you couldn't fulfill them in a very high quality way. So that's why now we are facing quantitative issue and the quality issue. So sometimes if we want to meet the speed, and then the quality is not so good. So that's a challenge. We have a debate about this, maybe do some readjustment. So once every 3 years, rotation taking the value, China, Africa, to show the equality. And it's not just a one-side China-driven initiative. This is a common design thing. So and avoid empty talk, because nowadays there are many this kind of mechanism, like I mentioned, but many of them, unfortunately, they just do empty talk, and no, those promises couldn't be delivered. So we want to avoid that. So that's why the action plan normally will filled with many accurate measures saying how many hospitals will be built, how many volunteers will be sent, how many agricultural technical demonstration center will be built. So always in numbers, very accurate number. So both sides, China side, African side, can monitor that. So that's another very important feature. And detailed measures in those action plan based on mutual discussion. So that's demand driven, different from those Western donors way. Western donors way is not demand driven. They map out their own idea and then give it to those recipient countries. So the very first one, see in the year 2000 in Beijing, and then the second one moved to the African countries, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. So the second one, among all those measures, maybe I highlighted the third one. That is to increase 33% input for the African Human Resources Development Fund. So we have established this fund, focused on the human resources training, to train African those expertise. And also, we also developed another fund that will be coming out later in the 2006. That's African Development Fund for encourage Chinese companies to invest in Africa. So this is the second forum. So the third one, that's the summit, has been upgraded to summit. That's the year 2006, because that was the year to celebrate 50 years anniversary of diplomatic ties establishment with Africa. Because in the year 1956, exactly 50 years ago, China has established diplomatic ties with Egypt. So the first Arab and the African countries who had established diplomatic ties with People's Republic of China. So in order to celebrate this great event, and then 2006, this third forum has been upgraded to the summit level. So that's why I think all those African countries had diplomatic ties with China, has sent their heads of states or heads of the government to Beijing. So that's why some Western media said during that time, that was the November, I think, if my memory is correct. During that time, they're saying, if you want to meet Africans, heads of states, you don't need to go to Africa, you just travel to Beijing. They're all there. But one guy didn't show up. Who is he? That's the Colonel Gaddafi. So that's why when the Libya civil war took place, some media again saying, oh, China had a very good relation with Colonel Gaddafi, and Libya, blah, 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 lots of saying. And actually, Colonel Gaddafi hadn't enjoyed good relation with China. Even that summit, 2006 summit, he himself refused to go, refused to join, and even lobbied some others not coming to Beijing. So the Beijing at that time didn't feel happy at all about Colonel Gaddafi. So during that summit, you will see we call it 8 measures. 8 measures. Those 8 measures now has pushing this China-African cooperation far, far forward. Because it covered, you can see it covered all of the domain, from trade, assistance, and then open China market, and then even the trade and economic cooperation zones, all of them. So assistance, and we established China-Africa Development Fund. That fund is affiliated with China Development Bank. So it got $5 billion for his capacity. So the first year, it has $1 billion can be a shareholder in those projects. They found it is very interesting. So this fund has played a very important financial role. And then we promised to build a conference center for the AU. So this center has been already handed over to African Union earlier in 2012. I visited that African Union many times when it has just digging the ground and then half finished and then when they're finished. So that's, and then trade economic cooperation zone. At the beginning, we planned to set up only 3 or 5. Maximum is 5. But eventually now we got 7. And then the number will coming up more because the African partners, African countries, they're all eager to have those zones in their country. Some countries even put forward 3 or 4, so they want this economic zone. So now in Nigeria, different places, now it's, I mean the arrangement is continental, facing whole the continental. In Mauritius, there is one, Nigeria, there are 2, and Egypt, there is one, Zambia, and the south, and there is one, so that's a continental. And the train professionals, scholarship providing for African students, so all of that, and the malaria treatment center. And this is the summit, but interesting enough to see the 2 guys besides Hu Jintao, they are all gone. You see that's the Algeria president. Yeah, he passed away because of the sink. And then Mubarak has been toppled down. And then the 4th one, Samsayev. Samsayev in Egypt. This one we announced another 8 measures. So that's why we call old 8 measures and new 8 measures. So those new ones, interesting. Before this this meeting has been taken place, our foreign ministry sent me around to several African countries to collect the responses from our African friends to see what should be their priority, their priority concern. And then the information we collected back is the climate change issue. So because African countries, they're eager to see China also getting involved in fighting with this global environmental deteriorating. So that's why, because the following months of this conference is the Copenhagen, the UN Climate Conference. So all those factors together, and then you see in our new 8 measures, this climate change issue becoming the top in our 8 measures. Nowadays, we have lots of solar energy companies. Now they are eager to working with the African partners in South Africa and in Kenya, in those countries. So renewable energy projects, and then science and technology. Anyway, because of time constraint, I will not go on now. Maybe I will just highlight the final one. Expand the people-to-people and the cultural exchanges. So being the think tank, I'm very proud to say this idea has been raised up by our think tank people and has been constantly lobby our government to write them in. So it has been successful. Actually, we have been lobbying this years ago. So eventually now has been written in. If this has been written in, we have been doing a number of conferences together with African colleagues. So under this program called China-African Joint Research and Exchange Program, because the money coming directly from our Ministry of Finance. So under this program, now we can we can buy the tickets for African scholars come over to Beijing, or even Chinese scholars go over to Africa to join conference. But this is the first phase. I think first phase is still a conference, workshop. And then the second phase should be some specific research projects. So that will be the second phase. And then join publish those papers or books, whatever. So this is this one. I think it's a good shine to show now our leaders realized the future of China-African relations couldn't be only rely on those high-level visits. It's still to rely on the people on the ground. So this is the 5th one, just wrapped up couple of months ago. So interesting enough is people are just wondering, a lot of foreign correspondents reached to me before the conference. Is there going to be another new 8 measures? Because in China, the number of 8 is a lucky number. So that's why when we are hosting the Olympic game 2008, the year 2008, you are going to have your Olympic game very soon. And then in China, we set the time exactly the 8th day of August. and then even the 8 o'clock and 8 minutes, and to set up those fires or whatever. So there's a lucky number all together. So we cannot go on like 8 measures, old one, new one, and put them in another new 8 measures. So this time we make it short, 5 new areas, similar like our political bureau. The guys now sitting in the political bureau also is downsized from the 9 now to 7, our new political bureau. And then, so those 5 areas, one is financing. 20 billion credit loans will be provided to Africa in the coming 3 years. So this promise has been reiterated by the recent President Xi Jinping's visit to Africa. So he mentioned it again. And the development assistance now goes to no longer those parliament building and the stadiums, those gorgeous African Union Center. They need one that's enough. And then we'll go to, most of them will go to those projects highly related with people's livelihood. So that's second. And the African integration, which means transnational infrastructure projects. So we used to deal with African countries in a bilateral way. So many infrastructure projects just within the boundary of the one country.